Coming up on This Week in Space, the private polar Fram2 crew comes back to Earth, NASA's Starliner astronauts speak out, and why is everyone so mad at Katy Perry launching on Blue Origin? We'll find all that and more, plus tariffs in space. So tune in.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is This Week in Space, episode number 155, recorded on April 4th, 2025. Space news you can use if you're not stuck on the ISS. Hello and welcome to another episode of This Week in Space, the cool space news you can use if you're not stuck on the ISS edition. I'm Rod Pyle, editor-in-chief of Van Aster Magazine. I'm joined by that Space Ace Newshound, I might say, Tarek Malik, editor-in-chief of Space.com. Hello, partner.
Hello, Rod. Happy Friday. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday to you.
Or podcast day, we should say, right?
And your custom-made, very cool sweater.
That's nice, isn't it? My wife made this for me. That's my favorite color. So it's nice. Orange for people who aren't watching. So
nobody's ever made me a sweater, so we're going to talk later. Today we're playing catch-up with Cool Space News because we kind of got behind the eight ball due to having a slate of really good guests. But for the next hour or so, we're going to make that up to you by covering a full range of topics, from Butch and Sonny's wild ride to orbiting the Earth's poles to mysterious Russian orbiters. Now, before we begin, please don't forget to do us a solid. Make sure to like, subscribe, and the other cool podcast things so that we can keep bringing you this fine content. And now, a space joke from, and I quote, Andy Watterson's daughter, Merritt Watterson.
Merritt!
Hey, Tarek.
Yes, Rod.
What was the name of the nuclear physicist's best friend?
I don't know. What?
Adam.
Adam. Oh, like
an atom. Okay.
Yes, up and at them. Got it.
Now, from Megan on Discord. Hey, Tarek.
Megan. Yes, Rod.
Why don't planets ever speak the truth?
I don't know. Why?
Because they prefer to spin.
I like that. I got that one. Okay. I got that one faster.
So. Okay, one more from yours truly. Why did America win the space race?
Why?
Because the Soviets were Stalin.
Got to think about that one, right?
Wow. Bring out the torches and the pitchforks. Okay, wow. I've heard that some people want to send us to a Russian gulag when it's joke time of this show, but you can help by sending us your best, worst, or most indifferent space joke to us at twit@twit.tv, and we'll be your huckleberries. Oh, speaking of which, how sad is it that we lost Val Kilmer at 65?
Yeah, he was young.
I didn't realize he was younger than me, because as bad as I look, he didn't look younger than me, but he had been through some pretty heavy stuff. But
star of Red Planet, the sci-fi movie, before Matt Damon.
Well, for the show, that's appropriate. But I mean, if you're going to talk about starring roles for him, Tombstone. I mean,
yeah,
hands
I
down.
can see that.
That was just.
I don't know. Top Gun was quite good, but you know where I first saw him in Top Secret. Do you remember that?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was the first movie I ever saw him in. So
that was funny.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see you, Val. All right, let's jump into some headlines, because this week we're all headlines all the time.
Headline news.
Oh, I missed it again.
We need to name her. Who is that? What are we going to call her?
Well, we should how about the people help us decide? Let's get some suggestions.
There we go.
From the listeners on the podcast.
I was thinking Carla, but it could be anything.
Well, it could be Astronautica. It could be who was the queen in was it Millennium or whatever that was? That Fritz movie.
Fritz Lang, Metropolis.
Metropolis, yeah. So.
Mechanical lady. Yeah. I don't remember her name. All right, let's actually do something productive here.
Fram2. You're just the one stalling.
Fram2. Fram2. This is a cool flight. So they're back, but and I think we touched on it last week. But can you give us a recap? I mean, because it didn't get as much airplay as the Polaris missions. At least I didn't think it did.
Well, it did, and there's a reason. Yeah, there's a reason for that.
But it's cool because it was polar, and nobody had ever done that before, not even anything like it before.
Yeah, this is hot off the presses because as we are recording this, the astronauts are being plucked from their capsules if they haven't already been out in the Pacific Ocean. But SpaceX's latest private orbital mission, Fram2, which was financed by cryptocurrency billionaire Chun Wang, I think of Malta, just returned to Earth after a 4-day mission. So it was a very, very short mission. They launched this week. They landed this week. And as you mentioned, Rod, this was the very first ever in the 60 plus years of space exploration flight that sent astronauts over Earth's poles. And that's because most of them always kind of go either on an equatorial direction or in an inclination that can reach the space station. What is that, like 52 degrees, something like that?
Yeah.
And but Chun Wang is an explorer. He is, gone to the poles, he has climbed mountains, and he wanted to go see Earth's poles from space. And they named it after a famed Fram polar expedition with ships and stuff like that.
Well, okay, the ship was called Fram. It was Edmondson going to the Antarctic,
Yeah. I knew that you would know more than I did about that, Rod. Yeah. But that's why it's called the Fram2 mission. And it seems like it went pretty smoothly, but you are right. For a private mission, we had a lot less ballyhoo about this flight.
Yeah.
Apparently by design. It sounds like Chun Wang didn't really want as much pomp and circumstance as what Jared Isaacman has done. Isaacman has really wrapped his Polaris Dawn and his inspiration for missions in philanthropy, in I don't want to say activism, but like awareness and whatnot, where he was really trying to push every little aspect of it to drive fundraising and that types of things for St. Jude's, and this one was really kind of dedicated to Chun's desire to see the Earth's poles as well. I think they did 22 different experiments. Some of them were photographing the auroras while people on the ground photographed the auroras from the surface, that sort of thing. But we didn't see anywhere as near as the in-depth media run-up to it, and even like during flight. However, one thing that was different, they had like video snippets, almost like cell phone videos of what life was like on the capsule every day. And it seemed like that Starlink connection that they've added to these spacecraft is really paying off, that they can get video. I think as he was being strapped into the capsule, he was tweeting out live video about what that was like. It was pretty crazy to see.
That's cool. All right, next up. We have from Space News, we have the first launch of Kuiper internet satellites.
That's right. Starlink, eat your heart out. We're just talking about that.
5 days.
Yeah, April 9th, as we are recording, this is the launch date for Amazon's first batch of Kuiper satellites. This is, they're going to launch 27 of these Kuiper internet satellites. Of course, this is Amazon's answer to SpaceX's Starlink, which has had such a leg up. And I think how many years, Rod? About 2-3 years to really solidify its hold on space-based internet.
Well, what are they up to? 3,200 satellites? More?
Well, they've launched over 4,000.
Over 4,000. Yeah. So Kuiper, even if they're more efficient, they have some work to do to catch up. Think about catching up.
Amazon is planning a constellation of 3,200 satellites, all in orbit to provide maximum coverage of Earth at high speeds for internet. And so this is their first mission. It's called Kuiper Atlas 1 because it's launching on an Atlas 5. In fact, I've heard that this is going to be the heaviest Atlas payload ever. For
so at least they get to use their own engines, right?
Yes. So there is
not their own rocket. Yeah.
So so it'll be interesting to see how this mission goes. If you might recall, Amazon launched kind of like a Pathfinder set. I think it was 2 Pathfinders in recent years to see if the technology was ready. It sounds like it was, but it's been a bit of a road to get here. In fact, the folks at Blue Origin that were also working a little bit on this had to really kind of push and whatnot, is what I've heard through the grapevine. So we'll see how this does, because they have confidence that they're going to be able to have this operational constellation fairly in short order. And it's based in Kirkland, Washington, which is kind of very close to where Blue Origin is based as well.
And the home of all the best cheap generic brands at Costco.
That's right.
Apparently.
That's right.
All right.
So
from People Magazine, that's a first.
yeah.
We have Olivia Munn complaining about the all-female Blue Origin space crew for the next suborbital launch of
and
Shepard.
I picked this one. Yeah, I picked this. So April 14th is the launch date for Blue Origin's next crewed spaceflight, and it is organized and led by Lauren Sanchez, the fiance of Blue Origin's billionaire founder Jeff Bezos. And Sanchez has put together kind of like an all-star list of scientists and singers. Katy Perry is one of them. Gayle King, the news reporter, another, and the whole big thing is that they're all it's an all-female crew. So it's the first all-female crew since Valentina Tereshkova launched in the 60s, right? So it's the very first time that they've done this. And for whatever reason, this one Blue Origin mission is spawning such hate or anger or like drama online. You know, they've launched how many of these, Rod? Like a good 10 or 15,
Easy.
right? I think,
yeah.
I think they just had their 10th.
Yeah.
I mean, they've launched a lot. They've launched several times over the last 2 years. And this is the one that is getting the biggest backlash. I didn't see this backlash when they launched William Shatner to space or Michael Strahan to space or even Wally Funk, who at the time was the oldest person, right, that they launched into space on that first flight. Or even when they launched Jeff Bezos to space, you didn't see this much backlash. And Olivia Munn, I'm pointing it out here because I've seen her comments just echoing throughout the general culture sphere. New York Post has it, People has it here, but she wasn't the first. A lot of the kerfuffle started a week or two ago with other people complaining about how that this is the dumbest mission ever that they're saying. And the only thing that strikes me, and perhaps it's just my lens, is that it's an all-female crew and it feels like it's open season on this mission, and I don't know. What do you think about that, Rod? About the fact that there's this big pushback against it?
In these times, it's hard to be surprised by much of anything. But with you, I'm with you. It is kind of weird because there's certainly been other missions you could criticize if you were going to, and especially because this is a privately funded, low-resource mission. It talks about what a terrific waste. It's a suborbital flight for 6 minutes. It's like a couple of jet airliners. I'm minimizing it a bit, but you know what I mean.
I understand the point. Just don't get me wrong, because space tourism is a fabulously, I'm not trying to
target.
What I'm trying to say, it is a spectacularly like example of conspicuous consumption, right? Yes. So, and we are in, some tough times economically wise. We've just got these tariffs, which I think we're going to talk about in a little bit. And we were talking about the price of eggs earlier. This is not going to lower the price of anyone's eggs like this launch.
Okay, but we may be able to deliver them from point to point by Starship soon.
There is that. But anyway, it's something to watch. And everyone out there, you make the call. Why do you think this mission is being so blasted so publicly, whereas the last 10 have not been? Just think about that. I want to know your answers. So send us
about that and send us your answers. After we come back from this break, we will be right back. Stand by.
Sorry, I didn't mean to give everybody homework. So
it's okay. This one's on you, pal. Are you ready?
Yeah.
From Reuters, tariffs in space. Now, what I just said it like your name. What a brain tariffs in space. So I'm letting you take all the credit for this one when the mail comes in, but go for it.
Yeah, well, this one, I mean, people, these are really fresh. Like as we are speaking, I think we have it's been just like less than 48 hours since the new tariffs.
Yeah, the stock market shock is still sinking in.
Yeah, that was yesterday when everything cratered and went through the floor. It's the lowest stock, the biggest drop since 2020, since the COVID, basically. But I'm asking the question because I don't think that we know what's going to happen yet. But for people who maybe didn't see the news, the government in the U.S., the Trump administration, released a sweeping wave of very high tariffs across the board. I think 10% for most countries. China is 34%. The UK is 10%, and we run a surplus with trade for them. And it's going to touch on everything from cars to all sorts of technical imports, steel, all of that stuff. And so the question that Reuters is talking about in this article here, as well as the times before, is what is that going to mean for the aerospace industry? You know, we have talked a lot about international cooperation. A lot of the companies not only have international partnerships, but they rely on parts that are made in other countries to build their vehicles, their planes, their spacecraft, whatnot. I mean, think about Northrop Grumman, Rod, right? They build the Cygnus spacecraft, but it is a pressure vessel built for them in Italy. And then shipped to the United States
by
for
Thales,
final.
right?
Exactly. And so like what is the tariff on that going to be? I don't know, right? And so it seems like the economy specialists in the aerospace industries, particularly in the European Union, which did get hit fairly hard, are keeping a close eye on all of these components, all of these industries. You've got Airbus that needs to ship their, or not Airbus, Arianespace that builds their rockets and then has to ship them all the way down to Kourou, and from different parts all around. There's a lot of moving parts in this whole industry, and it's unclear to me how that's going to be affected. In fact, we've got a story in the works at Space all about that, that you'll probably see next week. Maybe we'll talk about it on the show. So this is just something that I want to put on everyone's radar, because it could touch everything that we consume here, because much of the stuff that we buy or need or whatever is imported.
Mm-hmm.
But the same is true for these companies. SpaceX probably not so much. They build a lot of their components in-house, and when
almost all of them, yeah,
almost all of them, yeah. And when they've had some failures, it was a third-party part that they ended up replacing in-house in the past. But what about Boeing? What about Northrop Grumman? What about Lockheed when they're trying to build the things that we need for these launches? We'll have to wait and see.
Well, and things that NASA may need as well.
Yeah, I mean, this is why ULA shifted from the Russian engines to their new ones for the Vulcan rocket. It is why Blue Origin built their own engines. No one wants to have to deal with importing those critical parts, and it's why you know that Northrop Grumman is building a new version of their Antares rocket that doesn't use a stage built from Ukraine. They've had to really shift away from that.
Very good points. All right, I'm going to skip one down and go to SpaceX is going to be flying a test run soon, we hope, for the U.S. military to deliver cargo anywhere in the world in less than 90 minutes with the Rocket Cargo Vanguard program.
Do we hope? Do we hope that that's going to happen soon?
Well, I'm kind of neutral on the military aspect, I guess, but the reason I hope that is because it will give them a hobnail boot to the posterior to get going with Starship, because they're, by rough estimation, in my mind, about 5 years late at this point.
Well,
can I just add one more thing?
Yeah, go ahead. Go.
The test landing zone apparently is going to be my favorite place on the planet, Johnston Atoll in the Central Pacific. There are concerns about seabirds and sea life and so forth. And if you've ever been to Johnston Island, I mean, it is designated a natural preserve now and part of the Pacific Wildlife Heritage Trust or something. I don't remember the name. But it's a protected area. But Johnston has been a military dumping ground in the Pacific. I mean, other than the places where they tested atomic bombs, Johnston's about as bad as it gets. I was there once for a few hours, transiting to points west from there, and it looks like when you're coming in, it looks kind of like an aircraft carrier. It's this big rectangular thing literally in the middle of nowhere, 700 miles from Hawaii, and it's a kind of a dump. It's a sheared off, because the Navy's been there a long time. They were using it from World War II on, certainly, and it is known for a place where you can land and refuel an airplane, and where they used to have a single building down at the end of the airstrip where they would burn bioweapons that were no longer necessary. So that's the kind of place it is. So while I understand, we have to be cognizant of species and so forth, of all the places where you could get concerned about, which fish or birds are going to piss off, and literally it's small. I mean, it's just big enough to land a 727 and take off again, which is why they fly 727s down there. because it's too darn short for, it was, I don't think they're using it for that anymore, too darn short for like real airplanes. So it's an interesting, so anyway, sorry, that was kind of my take on it.
Well, so I mean, I take the point. Although, like, while it's small for airplanes, it's not small for the birds that are there. You know, I understand why the people are upset, but this isn't anything new for SpaceX. By the way, we should tell people. So this Rocket Vanguard thing, it's Starship. The Air Force wants to explore using Starship for point-to-point cargo transportation. In the solicitation or announcement in the Federal Registry about what these are, it's a Vanguard thing for up to 10 reentry landings per year over 4 years to test and demonstrate these capabilities to deliver 100 tons of cargo wherever. 100 tons of cargo is the payload manifest, at least currently, for Starship. So that's the vehicle that we're talking about, the world's largest rocket. They want to land that on this remote atoll in the South Pacific. And the concern, at least from the American Bird Conservancy, they sent out a blast today. But this story was also reported by Reuters earlier this week to say that they're really pushing to stop it because they saw what happened in South Texas, where Starbase is, where the first launches destroyed a bunch of really invaluable nests for some birds, I think, that are either at risk or on the endangered list. But they said that there are something like there's some species where there's only like 70,000 of the birds ever like left on the planet, which is like, as I understand it, small for birds. I'm not an ecologist at all. But that this is their main stomping grounds, and having, the world's largest rocket land here, possibly crash, right? We don't know.
There's a big downside there.
It's significant, you know.
But I would ask, if it's not fair to ask a conservancy group this question, I'm just spitballing here. But if you're going to object to that specific place, help us find one that is okay, like Mojave Desert, right? Or somewhere where you care. Well, wait.
All right.
I mean, wherever you go, you're probably going to upset some part of the ecosystem. That's the nature of human beings. I mean, we're kind of parasitic that way, right?
What is stopping the government and the military from just building the platform right offshore of the place? I mean, it's SpaceX, run by the world's richest man. They can afford to build their own thing, right?
But we know he doesn't spend money unless it's in his own interest.
I'm just saying. I mean, I don't think. Okay.
Or do what they did in the Galapagos, which is there was one island that had a terrible rat infestation, so they took everything else off that island and put it in temporary holding pens in other islands. Birds, turtles, a breed of pig or boar, a bunch of other stuff, physically transplanted it temporarily long enough for them to kill off the rats, who were an invasive non-native species, and then bring them back. So you could certainly transplant things for less money than you could build a seagoing platform. But yes, your point is taken.
I understand. I don't think it should be on the ecologist to find another site. They could just say, hey, look, like, take this into consideration. But I don't know.
Well, that's because you're not a boomer. I lived in the age of progress, in the space age.
But
where there was no conservation. It's like, hey, leaded gas is good. It goes down to your lungs earlier.
Right?
Okay, we got to go to another break.
Yeah.
We'll be right back. Stand by. Okay. Were you done with that one?
I'm done. Yeah. We'll wait and see. We'll see what happens, right? We'll see what happens. There's got to be a place out there in the South.
That's kind of how we're looking at everything these days.
Yeah.
We'll see how it happens. All right. Now, this is a big one. Ars Technica, Eric Berger, our friend of the show, put out an article about the Starliner flight in which he related how he had a chance to talk to Butch Wilmore. And he was supposed to have a 10-minute slot at the end of a very long press day, but he and Butch apparently get on well, so it went on for a half hour plus. Mm-hmm. And wow, apparently that flight was a little more contentious and scary than we had been led to believe.
Yeah, this is really good.
Thrusters went out, but we didn't realize it was like life-threatening in the way that it was.
I think that we all thought I thought it was really concerning, right? Those thrusters get out, they're not at the space station. They don't know what's going to go on.
Well, I thought it was concerning, but we kept saying, okay, there's 1, oh, there's 3, oh, there's 5, oh, no, it's down to 4. It's like somebody was rolling the dice. But as I understood the way those clusters work, I thought, well, that's okay. Until you discovered that most of the ones that went out were all pointing one direction.
Yeah.
And then suddenly you have maneuvering issues to get out of orbit, and that gets scary. So take it away.
Well, I have to admit, I actually missed the big press conference this week with Sonny Williams and Butch Wilmore talking about it. But it sounds like from this article in looking through it that Eric put together, it was stuff that came after the fact that we didn't hear there. But it was very interesting to see how candid Butch was in describing what it was like both to pilot the Starliner, because he did say in the public, well, I guess the wider press conference, that he enjoyed that aspect of being really hands-on with the vehicle, being able to have that kind of control. But yeah, it seemed like it was a lot hairier than it appeared to maybe a lot of us on the ground. I thought obviously they were in a good fit of trouble when you lose attitude control and you're in free drift, which they were. That's not a good place to be when you are on a brand new spaceship. And I think
and real close to a great big metal object in orbit.
Exactly.
That you don't want to bump into.
Exactly. And it really is a good read, this article by Eric. I really encourage it, because it isn't like you aren't hearing the descriptions of what happened filtered through Eric's voice, which is always a great voice, right? This is really kind of a transcript of what they were saying was going on, and it is extremely interesting. There will be books written about this, if there haven't already been, right, Rod? About all of this, and so he's talking about how they're losing the thrusters, and now they're single fault tolerant for the loss, and they're really starting to
meaning that they're right on the line. Yeah,
exactly. So. And he's like, we're supposed to leave the space station, and how are they going to be able to get through all of this? It's just crazy. And so it is really great. And they also praise the people in mission control that are doing all of the Tiger team work, just to make sure that they can get to the space station, let alone do the other tests and maneuvers that they were going to be doing.
It did cause me to wonder, this is the kind of question that somebody should be asking me and I should be able to answer, and I wouldn't be able to answer, which is, if they had a maneuvering problem sufficient that they could neither get to the station nor get back, which, is unlikely but possible in any case, how long would it take to cycle up one of the spacecraft on the ISS to perform a rescue?
I don't know. That's a really good question. Could they even do it, Rod?
Yeah.
How would they do it? Right? The suits that they had on Starliner. I'm glad that we didn't have to find out the answer to this, because the suits that they had on Starliner are those Boeing pressure suits, right?
Right.
And I don't think they're rated for full vacuum. Neither are the SpaceX suits, which presumably you would need, right?
No, but I don't know how different the ones on Polaris Dawn were, but they are pressure suits, not EVA suits. And my understanding is that the differential is primarily about wear points and thickness and all that for safety reasons, but they are designed to be at full vacuum for as long as they have to be to get the astronauts back safe. So if you're not, moving the joints a ton and rubbing up against stuff, I think that's the whole point of them. It's like you're expecting. But
detached, how do you get out of the spaceship?
Well, you'd have to be on umbilicals, and that means that you then have to, I guess, uncouple and recouple in the spacecraft that's rescuing you, which of course the Boeing suits aren't standard. So to SpaceX and vice versa. So I don't know how they do that. And that probably argues for standardizing suit fittings and couplers and things. Yeah, that's kind of important.
I think that's one of the biggest lessons that I think that NASA should have learned from this whole thing. It's great to be a customer, and it's great to tell them what you need. And that's what they did for these two companies. But perhaps pushing for that kind of interoperable. I still can't say it. I think it's great because you get in a car, you know how the car door works. It works very similar to every other car door, right? And so or the lights on the cars, that kinds of thing. I think the only time I've had a problem is when I bought a Saturn, my space car, and you had to use special tools to open things, and that was really annoying. So I hope that there is that kind of thinking going on for the future. If there's ever another evolution of this, is to find that kind of system where they can just ship up an extra suit and it fits because they can plug it into whatever, or an adapter. Just have someone build an adapter, Well,
and certainly if you're going to have to go EVA for a rescue, you should have, and they may have, I don't know this one way or the other. We should look into it probably, whether they have one of those small emergency backpacks or not.
Or the bubbles, right? Those bubbles?
Those never went in the bags where you curled up and got zipped inside. Yeah. I guess they tested them, but I don't think they ever tested them.
I would freak out so much.
Oh yeah.
Vacuum bags.
Having
and then what if you get in the
hatch
and it and then it gets snagged in the hatch and then you can't get in or out of the spacecraft? I would freak out.
Well, at least you'd be in the right position to kiss the proper part of your anatomy goodbye. So, okay.
I've never claimed I'd be a good astronaut. I've never claimed it. So
I know I wouldn't. When I get that flop sweat in between floors on an elevator when it slows down too much. Let's get one more in before the break. We have some mystery Russian objects in space.
Yeah.
My friends, Cosmos 2581, 2582, and 2583. And Cosmos is, it's funny that they continue that on for the Soviet days. Cosmos was always the designation for satellites that they didn't want to talk about. And now there's 3 more they don't want to talk about. Mm-hmm. Conducting what we politely call proximity maneuvering tests, which basically amounts to potentially intercept and destroy or intercept and grab tests, which are making people nervous.
Yeah, so these spacecraft, they all launched on the same Soyuz rocket in February, on the 2nd, I believe, as we're recording. And because they're military satellites, they have that Cosmos designation. So that's how you know that they're probably some kind of government or military type function. They also launched from Plesetsk, which is the northernmost Cosmodrome. I think Plesetsk is in Siberia. Is that right, Rod?
I think so.
Yeah. And so they do a lot more military flights out of there. And in March, the people that track these satellites, Jonathan McDowell and others, noticed that the 3 of these three satellites were all kind of hovering around each other, doing different types of approaches and whatnot. And that's why they think they're doing proximity operations to study how to do, reconnaissance or investigations in space. And on March 18th, as they're doing these, the U.S. Space Force, which tracks all the objects around, all the satellites around, found a new object in the orbit, which they think might have been released by the Cosmos 2581. So it's a satellite that spit out another satellite, and they don't know what it is. So that's the cloak and dagger aspect of all of this. What are these 3 satellites doing? What are they deploying in space? What are they testing? Because it could be anything. It could be a target, right? Like a debris capture target. It could be some other kind of target, it could be for formation flying. It could be a docking target. We don't know. And it could be a science experiment too. So there's lots of.
So that's a good point. It could be nefarious from our point of view, or it could also be completely neutral.
Could be an accident. Could be debris.
Right? Yeah. I mean, to be square about it, Russia hasn't been flying a lot of pure research stuff lately because their space budget's in a shambles and their space program's in a shambles for reasons we don't need to talk about. But and we fly the X-37B, which is also secret. But at least according to the third-party observers, who are the ones I think we have to believe in this case, our spacecraft doesn't seem to be carrying out anything quite as suspect as what we're seeing with Cosmos. And frankly, the Chinese were doing this a few years back as well.
And they've seen these kinds of things with Chinese and Russian satellites too in the past, right?
Yeah,
so they've seen these kind of trios doing work. It's just really strange to see it, and then it begets another satellite. Like what is that up to? So, you can expect that the Pentagon's watching it pretty closely right now.
The machine overlords are spawning at last. Quick, get Leo in here. They're having babies.
Just be nice. Always say thank you to your robot, right?
Yeah, because they keep records.
There's a story in the Times today about humanoid robots and how there's a company that's selling ones that can help out in your house using AI and all sorts of stuff.
They want to. Because they also will have you alone in the house at wee hours of the morning, and you have to sleep sometime.
Oh my gosh.
Often tell my girlfriend. Okay, let's run to our last ad break, and we'll come back with Starship Test 9. Used rocket, anyone? Stand by.
Yeah.
And we are back with more ad breaks to come, as I was informed.
You said.
But I said.
You said it was the last
Starship
one.
Test 9 coming up, and I believe they haven't been cleared for Test 9 yet. They got cleared for tests for the results of Test 7, which was explosive, but they're still investigating Test 8, which means that they're not yet cleared to schedule a date for Test 9. My brain hurts. But one thing that's very cool about it is that they're reflying one of their boosters. Now, that strikes me as a little odd considering that the upper stage can't be reflown because they keep blowing them up. But, you get your progress where you can, and it's going to use 29 used engines.
Yeah.
Which is
not
really
only that.
Something.
It's a big week for Starship for SpaceX because NASA added Starship officially to the launch offerings that SpaceX can offer NASA this week. And then this happened where SpaceX took the Flight 7 booster, which launched in January, and then they put it up on a test stand and did the static fire for their next flight with mostly reused engines, 29 of the 33 on the first stage, which is crazy that they were able to do that with
That's
confidence
fantastic.
that it wouldn't just blow up. Well, crazy in a good way, right?
Yeah.
And I just, it's enormous. Again, I mean, I've told you this. I've been there. You can stand across the street from that giant thing to see it. But there's
because people pay you to travel.
Well, yeah.
Unlike some of us space journalists.
We should hit the road. We should hit the road.
Cry me a river. Yeah.
You can stay on the floor of my hotel next time I get to go there. How about that, Rod? How about that, right? Or we'll get like a one of those futons.
Creating disturbing images, but
We'll
go
get a
ahead,
cot.
please. Just get a doggy bed.
No, so we saw this iterative approach that SpaceX took in the early days of the Falcon 9, where they did the test fires, they did the little hopping at their McGregor site in Texas, and now they're taking the next step. Elon Musk has said that the whole point of Starship is that it's a fully reusable vehicle. Now, as you point out, they have not managed to reach orbit with the new version that debuted in January and then again in March. Both of them failed during ascent, but the two boosters themselves did not. And they were able to catch one of them. I think one of them they redirected out to sea. Right. But they've managed to catch it a few times now. And so they think that they can turn it around at the pad and try this reflight. So that will be a really big win if they're able to do that, especially if they can fly most of the engines again. And that is what I am a bit more impressed by, the 33 engines of this Raptor 2. And they're building these at record paces to be able to accommodate such a massive booster. So I think that it'll be very interesting to see how this flight pays out. But there is a lot of road to go. SpaceX doesn't really know why the Starships failed. The ship vehicles themselves failed on the last two flights. They did change the design from the previous ones all the way up to Flight 6. And that could be a factor. There's something in that design that isn't working the way they think it is. But, two of those have failed. The boosters themselves seem to be getting all of their kinks ironed out. And so it'll be interesting to see if they can cross that threshold with the upper stage and finally reach orbit and then reuse both of the things. Because then you've got maybe something that you can scale up to reach the flight rate that they'll need for this point-to-point stuff we were talking about earlier.
Well, and orbital refueling,
and for orbital refueling, and for Artemis, and for the crew stuff, and for Mars as well. all of that stuff is hinging on this reusability, and at least they're like one step closer with this test.
Well, and I'd have to think that, and maybe we have some people that have been with us on the show that do have NASA access. It would be interesting to ask, but I have to think at this point, there are some nervous folks wondering about how soon, if ever, this is going to make sense for a lunar lander. Now, to be fair, two or three flights of a new design do not something robust make, and they've done it very quickly. And when you look at that, you start complaining about that versus the SLS, which is at this point about a 22-year project and has only flown a couple of times. SpaceX is still really killing it, and it's impressive. And they're willing to hang their underwear out in public and have failures like that. It's just, it's a little concerning.
I'll tell you, I would be more concerned. I would be more concerned if there was actually a functional Boeing exploration upper stage for SLS, something that there was a very clear alternative that could carry a different type of a design. Because right now, even if there was another design for a lunar lander, there's still no rocket to carry it, right? Except for what Starship would be.
Well, or you just break up the flights. I mean, you
would have to.
It's been postulated, and I will add, we have an article coming in the next edition of Ad Astra, which will be out in a few months. Not this one that's coming out in a couple of weeks, but in a couple of months, about the idea of segmenting this into the New Glenn and Falcon Heavy, which could easily transport the components needed to be linked up and used for a lot less money than we're spending. But that's a show unto itself. And actually, we should get somebody on who's fluent in that. That would be interesting. That would really talk about the alternative approach.
And I'll close off with this one last idea, because I fully expect and believe that once SpaceX is able to figure out both the ship vehicle in a way, and I think they'll do it quickly, and the booster, like they've shown, that it will be like scaled up massively very, very quickly. Like we just passed recently 400. Right, 400 plus landings for SpaceX for the Falcon 9, and they didn't start landing them until what? It's only been 10 years, and 400 times they've done that in 10 years. I mean, what did NASA launch? They launched like 4 space shuttles a year.
And that's it. Let's not forget an environment where nobody ever landed a rocket back on Earth like that.
Exactly.
Ever.
Exactly.
So
on ships moving in the ocean. Okay, so anyway, I think that we're gonna get there, but there's rows to hoe, is all I'm saying.
And you got it right.
Yeah.
I thank you for that. So it's not roads. Let's do one more before we go to our next ad break. How about Japan's JAXA, their space agency, is planning to send mini rovers to Mars and a lander to Phobos. And it's interesting. They're looking for rides, but it's interesting that they're finally jumping into this. So they've tested some of this technology already on the moon, but the idea that they could get multiple mini rovers down, and they're talking about using one of these soft fabric expandable decelerators, like NASA tested. And the article in Space News says, NASA tested the LDSC. Is that right? A few years back, but that article claimed successfully, and if you recall having Rob Manning on here, who was the chief engineer on that, I don't think they ever had a complete success.
They flew 2 different designs. One was successful, one I think spun out.
The big one was not.
Yeah. So now this is interesting. I actually was glad that you had flagged this one, because I saw Jeff Faust's piece. This is from Jeff Faust at Space News, and it actually is a presentation that the new Director General of Japan's Institute of Space and Astronautical Sciences gave. It's part of JAXA, the Japan Space Agency, gave at the National Academy Space Week this week on April 1st. So it was not an April fool's joke that they want to do this, but they are looking at this inflatable reentry vehicle. It's like a heat shield to allow them to land bigger things on Mars. And what they think that they can do by using these decelerators is really scale up what they deliver
Sorry, so let me just jump in for a second. So the idea behind these big soft decelerators is
go ahead.
you can expand them much larger than the diameter of a rocket ferry and they can make it to Mars. If you don't use something like that, you have to have a small hardened heat shield, which becomes problematic. What is weird, however, is they're talking about 200 to 440 pounds of deliverable mass to the Mars' surface, which is half the weight of the Mars Pathfinder, which was already tiny. So they're talking really small machines.
They're small rovers, so you would expect they would be small but built to be capable, right?
But you still need a lander platform. So you're getting down to rovers that are probably like 15 pounds a piece or 25 pounds a piece.
Well, I think it'd be very interesting to see if you really, in fact, did. So this inflatable aeroshell, by the way, this heat shield, is designed to slow a lander down substantially more without the need for a really big and expensive and heavy supersonic parachute that you need, and that hard aeroshell that Rod was talking about earlier. And I would say that if you coupled that type of a thing with additional of these rovers, maybe those rovers themselves are surrounded in airbags, you really don't need a lander at all. They just pop like popcorn, and then they inflate on the bottom. That's just one concept, but it depends on really how the nature of the mission is going to be. They think that they've got this strategic fund of something like $1 trillion yen, that's $6.7 billion over 10 years, to advance different space technologies. This is one of the technologies they think will really bring Mars within reach for surface exploration. And JAXA already has you mentioned their slim moon lander, which had a auger in approach that landed on its nose and then spit out a camera to take a picture of it, which was spectacular. But they've got a mission, their Martian moons exploration mission, to go to Phobos, like you said, and collect samples and bring them back. I think, is that right? No, just to collect samples.
No, I think they're just examine there because the sample return is
wouldn't that
even
be
for a Martian moon. Yeah. Well, I'd be all for it because we hear nothing but sadness from that tale. We have to go to one more break real quick. And let's come back and talk about carnivorous dust devils on Mars because that's cool.
Cannibal dust devils, yes.
So our friend Perseverance took a series of still pictures of a dust devil that was moving, quote, erratically, unquote, which sounds more like a police report than one from the Perseverance rover. And then another littler one popped up, and they merged, and one devoured the other. And that's really kind of the extent of the story. It was just such a cool headline. I couldn't resist.
It's great. By the way, Rod picked the Gizmodo version of this story, which just had the picture of the dust devils, and so that's why I replaced it with the JPL one on if we're showing it where you can actually see the dust devils moving around.
Well, I thought the one I had a video link too, didn't it?
I didn't see it in the shell at the top, but I could be wrong. I apologize. But you can see if you're watching our YouTube stream or elsewhere, you can see there's this one really strong dust devil. It's a bit like a cyclone on the Martian what is it, a desert floor, and then you see the smaller one come up behind it, smack into it, and then it just gets all torn apart.
Hey buddy, ow.
I know. What I like about this view, because it's a landscape view, is that in the background you can see another dust devil just kind of going on its own way, going, I don't want any part of that. And you guys are all up to yourself. It's way in the distance.
This reminds me of gym class every day in junior high school, right before we went in the showers and got beat up.
I want to hear what it sounds like there. I want to know. Yeah, I know, but I want to hear that dust devil like smacking into the other
one. What if it screams like an angry person? Would that be cool?
Be so horrifying.
Or maybe it sounds like the Tasmanian devil.
Yeah. But these are, by the way, they're not small. The larger dust devil that we're seeing in this image is 210 feet wide. That's 65 meters. The smaller one was only 16 feet wide. And then there's two other ones. So I missed it. There's that one in the background around the mid body, but then there's another one that's somewhere else. I can't find it.
Well, and
I do. I see it now. It's on the left. You can see it way far away. Wow. That is awesome.
So all of you people out there in audio listener land, this is what you're missing by not getting the video stream, which is available. for only $7 a month, and free, of course, on YouTube. One thing that this did remind me of, seeing the dust being blown around like that, is that weird paper that came out recently that was shocked, I tell you, to find that Martian regolith is probably toxic to human beings.
That's right.
Now, I'm sure that there was, I'm hoping there was some level of misrepresentation there, because we've known pieces of that story for decades about perchlorate in people. So maybe this was just putting a fine point on it, but I thought that was kind of weird when I saw that. It's like, yes, and?
Yeah, I know, right?
You know perchlorate's bad for us. Got it.
Maybe we just need a reminder before we start sending like all the people we can fit in a Starship there, right?
So this one I want you to just take and run with. It's our Asteroid 2024 YR4 update.
Right? Do we do the Law and Order? There was a study that came out this week or recently, actually, where this is the asteroid. What was it? 2024. I'm gonna get this wrong. Asteroid 2024 YR4. That was discovered over Christmas time, and we saw, what was it? I think it was February. Oh my gosh, it's going to kill us. No, it's not going to kill us. It's the highest risk ever. Wait, no, it's not. It's up and it's like Katy Perry going on her launch. It's up and it's down, right?
Except she won't be running into the moon, we hope.
Well, there is that, and I'm going to touch on that. So at the end of that month, they said they had gotten time on the James Webb Space Telescope to point it at this asteroid so that they could actually see how big it actually is. And they were able to do that. And James Webb was able to pin down the size of the asteroid. They think that now it's about 200 feet wide, so it's a little bit bigger. It's the size of, I think, a like the Empire State Building type of a thing, a 15-story building. Yeah. And I think the Empire's like what, 30 stories, something like that.
Yeah.
So 60 meters wide, and so they know that it's not as nebulous like what the size is, because of the infrared.
They had a range before.
Exactly.
A range of error,
and you can see like the images that they captured from James Webb, both at space.com, but also from the Space Telescope Science Institute, for what they were able to see. And similarly, they were able to use those James Webb information, and this is the second link, John, that we've got there, to take another look at what the impact probabilities are for the moon. And those, so
they were able to observe it long enough to narrow it down further.
Exactly. Yeah. And so they did say that as of those observations, it did increase a bit, the chance of it. Still like astronomically small, 96.2 chance that it's going to miss the moon.
Yeah, but it almost doubled. I mean, there's two ways of looking at it. It went from 1.7 to 3.8%.
To 3.8, exactly.
So we may get a show.
Exactly. So those are the two big findings. I think that we've still got some time. We've got between now and 2032. Help me out with the math. 7 years. We've got 7 years, right? So John is giving me a thumbs up. So before this asteroid swings by, to see how things go. But it is smaller than we thought, because the upper range was 300 feet before. So that's good. Right. And now the upper range is 220 feet. And it has a higher chance of hitting the moon, but still like an astronomically small chance of hitting the moon. So,
well, and this gives better cause for setting up on the lunar poles, because it's a lot less likely to smack into a pole than somewhere roughly equatorial.
Yeah. Yeah. But man, can you imagine we have a moon base there that is sitting there waiting to wait?
Well, that's what I was saying. Yeah. Yeah. Go down to the South Pole where you can hide in the dark.
That's right.
Let's see. Which one do you want to do?
Immortal Duke on YouTube says we'll just jump up before it hits, so that way it misses us.
Oh, yeah, it's like jumping in the elevator right before it hits the ground. I thought this was kind of cool. I called it Scat Lunar Dust. Firefly, NASA just announced from something that was actually published a couple weeks ago, but I just saw it. Was Firefly Aerospace's lander Blue Ghost, right?
Blue Ghost, yes.
Yeah. We knew they had an electrostat.
To be confused with Space Ghost. So
my favorite as a kid.
Space Ghost.
Yeah,
Right.
I actually saw it the first time. Set up an experiment using electricity or electrostatics to repel lunar dust, which had been talked about a lot because lunar dust is highly staticky, which is one of the problems. And if you've ever flipped through a book of or a website of pictures of the Apollo program, when they got in those longer moonwalks from Apollo 15 through 17, those guys came back in the lunar module filthy. Their pristine white suits were dark gray, and there was dust everywhere. And it's a real problem. It's abrasive, somewhat toxic, but worse than that, you can get asbestosis from it because the fibers get in your, or the little sharp bits that have never ever seen weather of any kind get in your lungs and possibly kill you, besides messing up your equipment. So it's important to figure out how to do mediation for this. So for years, there's been a talk about, well, when they go in the airlock, we'll hit them with a sonic bath, or, dump antifreeze on them, or there's all kinds of ideas of how to do it. I'm exaggerating there. But electrostatically is a really cool idea. So this is called the electrodynamic dust shield.
Yeah, and in fact, John, before you go on, Rod, John, if you hit that play button, if it works, we should be able to see this in action while Rod is talking about what it is. So, okay, go ahead, Rod.
Yeah. That is good. I actually hadn't seen that.
Yeah,
I wouldn't call it a video, but it's like a GIF loop. Yeah. This is going to be a real problem on the moon and Mars. So the fact they were able to actually do this little experiment, remember, this mission was short. It was only a couple of weeks. It had to be all in one lunar day. So I'm so impressed with what Firefly did.
What a lander that was, right?
Yeah, given the other ones that have augured in, and no ding on the other companies and countries trying to do this. It's hard to do. But Firefly nailed it on their first outing, and to be able to actually pull off this experiment and have it show something repeatable, and this was first proposed in 1967, and apparently would work for a variety of objects, including solar panels, possibly windows, and even spacesuits.
Radiators too, which you need to shed heat. Spacecraft. I mean,
right.
But the example that we were seeing in the video for folks watching was NASA testing it both on glass and also on thermal radiator material. And so, you need glass for your windows so you can see outside. And you need, or for your gauges that you need to measure for instruments and whatever. And the radiators, like we're talking about, are kind of key to shed heat for any kind of heat exchange that you're going to have on your vehicles themselves. And so, this is just like I think this was what the CLPS program, the Commercial Lunar Payload Services program, was to take an idea, this technology, actually test it to see if they can do it on the moon, and then they can implement that if they want to with the higher tier missions, with the people that are going to land there, with the factories or manufactories or whatever you're going to do. So very, very, very cool stuff. And I think the closest to sci-fi that we're going to get this year, possibly on the moon. We'll see.
Part of what CLPS is for.
Yeah.
I mean, part of it also was, hey, if you land there and pick up a rock or some dirt, we'll pay you for it. You don't have to bring it back. Just pick it up. Which was a really interesting way to kind of introduce this whole conversation of, I wouldn't say property rights, because that's not cool under the Outer Space Treaty, but resource allocation. We could say.
I don't know. That's what we pay like Amazon for, or the supermarket. They go pick up our groceries and put it on a shelf for us to go there and pick it up. Right? Then I got to put pants on to go to the store.
Oh, talk about a right turn. Pick a last story for yourself.
Yeah. It's been a week. It's been a week and a half. But I really think that we should end. Actually, we don't have a lot of stories left, Rod. We almost got through them all. It seems
we may have one or two more, but you go ahead and take your best shot.
We got SpinLaunch, and I think that we should go ahead and talk about SpinLaunch's plan to launch 250 satellites at a time into space, these micro satellites, to do broadband capacity in a constellation that they're saying is going to be far and above the types that we have available now. And why SpinLaunch is cool is because instead of using like actual chemical rockets from the ground, they're going to like slingshot them halfway up with this giant centrifuge thing that spins and spins and spins, and then poof, it goes straight up, and then a rocket once it gets at its apex, ignites and launches the thing into orbit. And so this is a very novel approach, I think, to the constellation.
Excuse me, it's interesting. It's novel, and yet it's as old as science fiction, right? Jules Verne in the late 1800s. And what kind of strikes me about it is these things are going to be subjected to like 10,000 or more Gs, which means you got to really hammer-proof those electronics. What I could not find anywhere was the actual. I know that the test object, at least the last one, was 10 feet long. It didn't. I couldn't find anywhere the specs that said the diameter of the actual launch tube. The diameter of the vessel is a few hundred feet. The centrifuge itself that spins this thing up. But I could not find the diameter of the exit tube. It looks to be about 3 feet.
It was small. It wasn't big at all. But that was their prototype, though, because it didn't actually go to space either. It didn't go suborbital when they did that. I think they're based out in New Mexico. Is that right?
Yeah.
Was that,
they're at the spaceport.
Yeah, that's what I thought, at Spaceport America. And so, if they wanted to launch bigger payloads, they do have to have a bigger vehicle. So I am waiting to see.
They're going to scale it up by, I think, a factor of 3, right?
Yeah, and they're receiving $12 million in funding from Kongsberg Defense and Aerospace to develop and commercialize satellites, and so they want to have an on-orbit demonstrator launched by next year, which suggests, Rod, that their concept is fairly mature. Right? If they think that they could try this next year. It is either that or it is very, very straightforward to scale up, like you were just talking about there, because the physics are fundamental. It's a sling, basically.
It's a real basic works or it doesn't kind of thing. There aren't a whole lot of fine points. Once it exits the cannon, if you will, the centrifugal accelerator, it either goes high enough to escape the gravitational well or it doesn't.
Yeah. And so they're calling this their race constellation to achieve significantly, and I quote, higher broadband capacity in a satellite constellation compared to with what is available on the market today. And what is available on the market today? Starlink, right? And the two others. You got Kuiper and you got the other one.
Well, their main point is that they'd be able to, even if Starship brings down costs a lot, they should still be able to do this for much less than
much
a rocket
cheaper
launch.
Yeah. OneWeb is the other one.
Right.
That's right.
And okay. And they're hedging their bets by reminding us all that it's roughly 70-80% less invasive in terms of resources.
Yeah.
Because they do still need an awful lot of power, but they're not burning up hydrocarbons,
There is a video on that page. If you scroll down, you'll find it too. So,
well, you are working this poor guy to death here. He's
I know,
minding his own business on his treadmill, watching us do our thing, and you're working him to death.
Kudos, by the way, John, for the treadmill. That's pretty cool that you're able to get that thing. I should do that for my video game.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It's been nice. It's been nice.
Aren't people that engage in fitness irritating, Tarek?
I don't know. I've lost 11 pounds in the last month.
I was just waiting for you to get
you
that
teed me up for that. You knew I'm proud of it, and you wanted me to share it with the world.
How many pounds have I lost since January?
How many have you lost?
Almost 20.
Wow, even better. That's
but
great.
You know
Congratulations.
What? The thing that I noticed when I was way younger than you are is that when you reach a certain size and you lose 20 or 30 pounds, people look at you and go, did you change your hair? Is your mustache longer? They don't get it until it's like 50 pounds and they go, oh, you're skinny. You look better when you were fat.
Oh, no.
So I would like to queue up the video on line 30. Tarek predicts the future. There he is. We got to hear the audio.
The question of how accessible these programs will be to the average person, not just the super wealthy.
Talk about space tourism.
I'd like you to listen to the assessment of Chris Anderson. He runs Space Adventures, which provides private space flight programs. Let's listen.
Within the next 10 years, there will be literally thousands of people going to space every year. And so it's certainly not millions like in civil aviation, but it's a heck of a good start.
Is he optimistic or is he right?
If you had asked me, a decade ago, if he was on the right track, I would say he's dreaming.
I look like a baby.
But, watching this industry develop over the last 15 years, like I have, there up until now, only about 550 or so people have flown in space. SpaceX, Boeing, Virgin Galactic, they're not building a spaceship for one person. They're going to be carrying 7 people at a time on these vehicles. If Bigelow Aerospace builds their space station, that's 6 people.
Oh, that didn't age well.
Just one module. He has set his sights for space hotels on the moon. They're not thinking
Oh,
small.
doesn't it? Oh,
And,
no.
SpaceX wants to put people on Mars in the next 20 years. So
How hard could it be?
I think that
I know.
if they can get this the cost down. We're seeing that with reusable vehicles. That we could see this whole market change as swiftly as what Eric is saying.
Well, you're a space guy. Do you
Okay,
ever dream
that's
of
good.
this actually being something that you might do?
Wow, I look so young. Even
Yeah.
then. So
You're a handsome lad once.
I probably
Well,
still
I mean,
have those
Of course
clothes.
you still are. Yeah, right, somewhere.
Man, but that Bigelow Aerospace thing, that did not age well. Not at all. Right?
Well, it was tough because at that point we were hearing.
Oh, look, I still have the glasses. They're my computer glasses now. They're the same exact ones. So,
Oh, trip down memory lane. So
look at that.
at that point, we were hearing just the first inklings of Starship and the incredible things SpaceX was doing, and of course, in to an extent, it's very self-interested, of course, but the industry, the space tourism industry, such as it was gassing off about, oh yeah, how hard can it be? There'll be thousands and thousands of people going into orbit because economy of scale and everybody will want to do it and all that. Well, we're still up in the hundreds in terms of people that have gone to orbit, and in the probably just in the double digits in terms of people that have done suborbital. So it's not quite working out that way, and the endless news stories we heard and read about the space, the gigaton space hotels that were going to be built, because how hard can it be? Well, as it turns out, it's really freaking hard. And I think people that had a good sense of this at that time knew it was pretty hard and thought, well, okay. So yeah, it hasn't quite worked out as we hope, but fingers crossed,
Yeah, well, by the way, for some context, that clip that you just ran was from CGTN America, so it's like the English Chinese news agency part of their CCTV, and it was 8 years ago. So 8 years ago was 2013. Is that right? So. Oh wait, what's 2017? 2017. Wow. We know where the math skills lie.
Thank goodness we can write.
But man, I have to say the one little thing from that, if you look at that clip online, because I don't know if Rod's going to include the link, the CGTN was the first agency or group ever to call me an astrojournalist, which is what we were calling myself, my friends and I, when I was in college, trying desperately to try to figure out what I was going to do with my life. So it was a validation of
you look like a Fox News
aspirations.
Reporter in that still clip that we're seeing. For those,
so there's two outfits. There's this one, which is a blue collared shirt with the red tie and the black sport coat, and then I have one that is the red collared shirt and the blue tie, and I would interchange them.
So you're crossing party lines. I got it.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you for allowing me to run that, which of course you did because I didn't ask you.
Yeah.
It was fun to go back in a time warp, and none of us would have guessed any better. So I'm not digging
so much more hair.
I'm not digging you at all for that. It was just I stumbled upon it by accident completely, and I thought, God, that guy looks kind of like Tark. Wait, that is Tark. It says astrojournalist. All right, everybody, thank you so much for joining us today for episode 155 that we call Cool Space News, that you can use if you're not stuck in the ISS. Tark, where can we find you battling Dr. Sloan these days? Did I get that right?
Well, Dr. Sloan? Well, no, that was like 3 chapters ago, Rod, but I really applaud you for the effort, right? So Dr. Sloan was a villain in Fortnite, everybody. So,
Grandpa looked it up all by himself.
No, actually, you can find me at space.com. As always, as Rod alluded to, you can find me on YouTube playing video games, Marvel Rivals, and Fortnite, and others at Spacetron Plays. This weekend, you will find me doing my taxes, part one, but also I will be at the Northeast Astronomy Forum in Suffern, New York on Saturday. It's a 2-day astronomy conference. They bill it as the world's largest astronomy expo, where you can see all the latest telescope and skywatching equipment. Eileen Collins will be there. Hoot Gibson, astronaut extraordinaire, will be there. Sarah Seeger of MIT will be there to talk about exoplanets. So I really suggest if you're in the New York area or you want like an hour-long trip, it's a short day trip out to upstate New York, get on a train, head on over there. It's going to be a lot of fun, and it's all put on by the Rockland Astronomy Club at the State University of New York in Rockland Community College.
Well, geez. Well, now that you spent 10 minutes promoting that, I should mention also in, just a skosh over 2 months, Tarek and I will be at the International Space Development Conference in Orlando, Florida, which is put on by the National Space Society, my employers. And Tarek is going to be getting the Space Pioneer Award handed to him by me. And it's a big heavy metal globe. So watch out. It might be worth coming just to see what happens with that. Because 2 years ago, when I gave it to Pascal Lee, I threw it on the ground. It was actually a mock-up. No, I made a mock-up of it that looked just like the real thing, but we got into a tug of war over the award because I pretended that I wanted it. Then I made sure that the fake one fell on the ground, and there is an audible gasp from the audience, which was my intention. But anyway, this conference is the highlight of my year. It's usually about 1,000 to 1,200 people that get together, and it's for everybody. We have most of the same guests you just mentioned, but a number of astronauts. Jared Isaacman's going to be there.
Ooh, by that time, possibly NASA chief.
Probably, yeah, the NASA chief. Greg Autry will be there, of course, number 3 in the agency. A number of writers from Ad Astra, Pascal, who we've had on the show, and just a whole bunch of, I think we have 6 astronauts coming, a number of senior NASA officials and so forth. So it's a good time. I like it just because I get to hang out with my tribe and I don't get that blank stare that I so often get when I talk to people about space stuff and they go, can you back up 3 feet so I can run away from you, please?
And you get the blinking stares of...
Well, yeah, and what's more fun than Orlando in the early summer, right?
Well, yeah, I look forward to being there. Actually, my family's going to come out too, because not only are we going to go to ISDC, but we're going to go ahead and check out Star Wars Land at Disney World, or maybe go see a rocket launch, or 7, depending on how many SpaceX is going to launch that week, right?
Well, and that's what's remarkable. I mean, I know I've relayed this before. The last time I was in Florida, I was up at KSC at National Space Society headquarters, which is on the Kennedy Space Center, in the Kennedy Space Center, and saw 2 SpaceX launches in the same day, about 4 hours apart. It's amazing enough that they do that on 2 separate coasts, but to do it from the same general area within a mile or 2 of each other,
which they did this week too. Yeah,
breathtaking. Yeah, and of course, I got that Dr. Sloan thing, and there I'll have to do better research next time. You can find me at pilebooks.com or at astromagazine.com. And maybe playing in a Tiddlywinks tournament at a derelict gas station down the road, because I don't live the high life like Tarek does. Please remember, you can drop us a line anytime at twist@twit.tv. That's twist@twit.tv. We welcome your comments, suggestions, ideas. Read every email, and somebody, usually me, will reply to them. New episodes of this podcast publish every Friday on your favorite podcatcher or venue, so make sure to subscribe, tell your friends, give us reviews. And I know I always read that quick, like I'm just trying to get out of the way, but I really mean it. If you tell, word of mouth is, you can't buy that. So if I could, I would. So if you don't mind, please tell people if you enjoy the podcast, because we need your love. And of course, don't forget, we're counting on you to step up and join Club Twit sometime this year, because besides supporting Twit in general, would be supporting us. And who brings you more love on a weekly basis than Tarek and Rod and bad jokes? You will get video streams on your podcast venue, although you can still see them for free on YouTube, so don't worry. But there's a lot of extras available there, and it's just good juju for everybody. So if you want to keep the electrons flowing your direction, join Club Twit. You can also follow the Twit Tech Podcast Network at Twit on Twitter, and on Facebook at twit.tv on Instagram. Tarek, my friend,
Yes,
it has been a pleasure and a joy.
it always is, Rod.
Always is. And I will see you and everybody else next week. Peace.
Hey, buddy, are you a geek? Are you a tech enthusiast? Then I would love to invite you to join a tech community like no other. You can gain exclusive access to our incomparable quality tech content for just $7 a month with Club Twit. As a member, you'll enjoy all Twit TV shows ad-free. Plus, access private video feeds for insider shows like iOS Today, Home Theater Geeks, and so much more. Dive into the members-only Twit Plus bonus feed for behind-the-scenes content, club discussions, and special events. But here's the best perk. Join our incredible Discord community to watch live show productions, chat with hosts, and participate in exclusive members-only activities. It's your backstage pass to the world of Twit. Whether you're a tech enthusiast or a lifelong learner, Club Twit elevates your knowledge while entertaining your interests. Get 2 weeks free when you sign up now for $7 a month and unlock unparalleled access at twit.tv/clubtwit. That's twit.tv/clubtwit. And from the bottom of my heart, thank you and welcome to the club.